Hopefully they can hear you. Can y'all hear him? Say something.
Yo, hello, hello, hello. Can you guys hear me in the comments?
Bruh, are you wait, oh wait. Some people are saying yes, some people are saying no.
Okay, listen, I got a question just out of curiosity. That's all, really.
They can hear you. You're fine, go ahead.
Okay, so do you believe, you believe the persons are really distinct from each other, right?
Yes.
But you wouldn't say that they're really distinct from the divine essence, correct?
Are you asking if the hypostasis is distinct from the divine essence? Yes, we believe that. The persons are really distinct from the essence, yes.
The persons are really distinct from the essence.
Yeah, it's not a conceptual distinction.
Yeah, there's a real distinction between the Son and the divine essence, yes?
Yeah, it's not a conceptual distinction.
Beautiful, beautiful, thank you. And okay, beautiful. Can everyone hear me in the comments as well? I don't know, because I don't want to be like talking and then like people be like, oh, what the hell?
Okay, you're good.
Is it? I don't know if it loads faster for you, but no one's saying anything for me.
No, they're all saying yeah.
Okay, beautiful. Where in your creed does it state that?
In my creed?
Yeah.
Well, real distinctions would have came after the creed, so.
Okay, where in your scholarship does it say that there's a real distinction between the persons and the essence? Or the hypostasis and the essence, I should say.
You could read what's his name? Gregory Palamas, Essence and Distinction. I don't know the exact quote, obviously, but I know he talks about it in there.
Is there any way you could, I know it's a pain, but is there any way you can pull it up or anything?
But I mean, I have the book here, but like it's 400 pages
Also,
long.
the
So I'm not gonna
energies,
give you the exact quote. But I mean, that's what we believe, though. Like if you want me to give you like a scholar that is, Dr. Bo Branson affirms this, that there is a real distinction.
Okay, great. But I'm one like maybe someone more like, if you get what I mean. But wait, where does he say that actually? Between the persons and the essence?
You can look even his debate with Jake the Muslim metaphysician. He talks about it.
Where does he say that? What the hell? I saw his debate.
Did you watch the debate? He has two debates with him.
I think on Orthodox Shahada, right? Yeah, I didn't see that.
Yeah, or either that or just look at his dissertations.
I read it. His dissertation on the LPT, right?
Yeah, he has two dissertations on the LPT.
Yeah, I know. There's one like huge one, and then there's like one over like a little bit smaller.
And they're both pretty big, but yeah, he affirms that there's a real distinction. I think Jay Dyer does too.
Between the persons and the essence, correct?
Yes.
Because the quote you gave me was, this alleged quote was from Gregory, and he says there's a real distinction between the essence and the energies, but you wouldn't say the persons are energies, correct?
No, correct, but we still say there's a real distinction between the person and because if it's only conceptual distinction, then we're saying that they could still be the same as the essence, but they're not.
No, because here's the thing though, right? Because if it's the case that there's, your quote to justify that from Gregory was saying that there's a distinction, the real distinction between...
I'm saying there's a real distinction. I don't have a quote of any scholar, but I'm telling you scholars affirm it. I don't have a quote on deck of scholars, but yes, there is a real distinction.
Is there any scholar specifically, like, in your creed, like not some sort of modern one, like maybe someone more...
It's because scholastic terms came later, so there's not going to be any in the historical creeds.
I talked about really different, or really use the word really different, for example, or really in respect to the persons, or really distinct. I don't know. Like, I don't...
In the early creed, they never talked about like minor, major distinctions, real conceptual distinctions.
We don't have to go into major and minor real distinctions, but I just mean real distinctions. The notion that they're really different in
real versus conceptual. Yeah, it's a real distinction.
Who's the first person to mention that, as far as you're aware?
I do not know who the first person is.
Do you have?
I'm just saying it's a real distinction, though. Like, if you want quotes, you can look it up. But I'm saying it's a real distinction.
Is there any way
issue with that? You could say it
from like Gregory or something, someone authoritative in your creed.
You feel like at Basil 234. I don't know if he mentioned it there, but it's possible. What?
230. You said okay.
You look at Saint Basil 234. He might have mentioned it there. I'm not sure.
Okay, what's his name? Sorry, his full name?
Saint Basil the Great.
Can I do that while we're on live? Just because I want to go through like this, like evidence. I want to go through it now if possible.
I don't know the exact quotes. I'm just telling you it's a real distinction.
I'll CTRLF it, no problem. So Saint Basil of...
Saint Basil the Great.
The Great, right?
Yeah.
Cool name. Okay, let's see. So Saint... What? Oh yeah, the Great. Okay, good.
And chapter 234. But if he doesn't, I don't know. I'm just saying it is a real distinction though, so...
No, I get you saying that, but I mean, like, I want to know if it's in line with your creed, right? Your scholars, your fathers.
There's no early creed that says it. That's the thing.
Do you have no early creed who supports your belief?
Because they didn't use terms like real and conceptual distinction.
So what was the alternatives terms? What was the terms they used instead? The synonymous terms.
They said that there was a distinction between the persons.
Yeah, but the distinction can be conceptually and real. So
that's what I'm saying. They didn't use words to describe whether or not it was conceptual or real.
Conceptual. How do you know they wasn't referring to conceptual then?
Because conceptual distinction would literally just be ADS.
No, how do you know they're not referring to like a virtual one then? So it's not real. It has some grounding in reality, but Or how would you account for that then?
Yeah, because it would have to be for there to actually be a difference between them, and for them to actually be three persons, it would have to be real. Because if it's not, and it's just conceptual or whatever, then they're pretty much the essence at that point in reality.
You do that's the whole. Okay, you do realize, like, okay, so are you Orthodox or Catholic?
Either. I technically lean towards Eastern Orthodoxy, but I'm not charismatic or anything. So
okay, that's good. Yeah. So sorry. So I'm looking at Saint Basil the Great. What was his book called? Like where he references this?
You can say someone said read What Type of Distinction by David Bradshaw. So that's gonna mention it.
Okay, David Bradshaw. You said right?
Yeah, it's called What Type of Distinction, David Bradshaw. What's that?
20th century. Do you have anyone? Is an actor? What the hell is this?
No, wait, David Bradshaw?
Yeah, I cannot find anything about.
Talking about the wrong. Okay, look up What Type of Distinction, David Bradshaw.
What type of distinction? I was thinking, who the hell? I know for a fact this guy.
No, he's not some actor. No.
Yeah, the essence of the distinction. Yeah, I look it up. He talks about the distinction between essence and energy. Like
he also talks about It's Dr. David Bradshaw. He talks about also the distinction between like person and essence too. I don't know what the exact quote is, but
did you not have any reference at all, like anything at all?
I don't keep references of where people said what is a real distinction, what is conceptual. I just know it's a real distinction.
I know you guys believe in real distinction between the persons. This is like everyone agrees, right? But whether it's a real distinction between the persons and the essence, that's what I'm questioning.
Not be a real distinction between the person and essence.
Yeah, for Catholics, for example, they don't believe that. I've never ever met a Catholic in my life that believes that there's a real distinction between the person and the essence. They hold to a virtual distinction.
Yeah, probably because they hold to ADS, but Orthodox and Eastern Orthodox wouldn't affirm that.
But you can, though.
Not if you're Eastern Orthodox. That's why the scholars I'm giving you Eastern Orthodox scholars. Like,
I think it's contradictory personally, but like I don't alhamdulillah. But okay, so so that's what I'm saying. I get you guys believe in real distinction between the persons and each other and the persons and the essence and the energies, but what about the essence and the persons?
It's still a real distinction.
But what's the reference? Do you have anything in your creed?
I don't just keep quotes on deck of people. I just read the stuff and I say, okay, it's a real distinction.
Out of what you've read, which scholar?
I gave you the book. You're just gonna have to look at it.
Which book?
The book I just gave you by Dr. David Bradshaw. What type of distinction?
What type of distinction? Okay, and he says very clearly, does he quote any authoritative father or saint, or is he just giving his opinion in the 20th century?
I don't know the quote. That's the point. I just told you. I just read the stuff. I know that they affirm it's a real distinction.
So he says, can you at least paraphrase the quote to me? So he says there is a real distinction.
I don't know. I just said I don't know the quote.
But you've read it though. Surely you can paraphrase it, right? You don't need to know the quote, but you can paraphrase it.
I've read Essence and Distinction too by Gregory Palamas. That's 400 pages. I can't just give you a random quote.
Okay, can you tell me at least anything like what's his conclusion? What does it state, etc.? Like which fathers does he quote? You don't have to give me the quote. Just like which fathers does he use when making his conclusions? Surely you know that, right?
You have to read it. I'm saying I know that the affirmative is that it is a real distinction.
No, but you've read it, right? The book.
What about the real distinctions book?
No, the book by David Bradshaw. The What Type of Distinction? You've read this, right?
Yes.
So which fathers does he quote or use within his book?
I don't know. It's like 300 pages.
You don't remember a single father that he used?
It's like 300 pages. What do you mean?
No, I know, but if I have a book, for example, like a big book, he quotes Ibn Taymiyyah, I'll remember that he mentioned Ibn Taymiyyah. He used him as an authority, right? So I'm saying likewise, like David Bradshaw, does he use any authorities in his book or does he just make his opinions?
More than likely he's going to use it. Just read the book and you'll see.
No, but I'm asking you, but you're making the claim though. So I don't like if
I'm making the claim that it is a real distinction.
Yeah, but
you have an issue with it being a real distinction.
If I told you that Bat Emin says that the New Testament is completely 100% corrupt, and I said just read this book, you wouldn't be satisfied. I have to give the reference.
My claim was that it's a real distinction. Is there any issue with it being a real distinction?
It's supported within your creed. I've not seen any evidence that it's supported by your fathers or your saints or anything like that, though. That's the problem.
Bro, just saying that the persons are the person's distinct from the essence. Everybody believes that they're distinct from the essence, but in what way? It's a real distinction.
So what does a real distinction mean?
Yeah, real distinction that it's actually grounded in a reality, and it's something that's like, it's not like, for example, conceptual distinction wouldn't actually be something that is within reality. They're actually distinct within reality. It's something that just, unless you consider conceptual in your head, so.
Well, yeah, exactly. So you said that they wouldn't, so that's what I'm asking, though. I want to verify that it goes in line with the Orthodox position, right? Or whatever position is that you follow.
Read the book,
no, but you made the claim. You have to bring the reference from the book. Surely you have to make sense. You cannot just say read the book, a 500-page book, and I'm not going to give you the reference. You're
How am I supposed to get a quote in a 500-page book right now?
I think Jordan disagrees with you, but no, Nick is actually correct. Like conceptual is distinct from real. Like the conceptual distinction is not the same as a real distinction. Anyhow, the point is that the title. What is it about? It's about the energies and the essence. Correct? The book.
There's two different books. He has one about the essence energies and has one about specifically about distinctions. Like he has one that said he has one book. It's called The Divine Glory and Divine Energies, as well. And then I think he has another one as well. And then he's Orthodox too, so he's lined up with Orthodox theology as well. But
okay, great. Yeah. So if this guy who's making claims, right, David Bradshaw, whatever, how do I know that he's not just pulling it from his nowhere? What authorities does he use?
The way you would know is by reading the book and seeing what he actually says.
But surely you've read it, so you can give me some sort of paraphrasing or some sort of, just tell me like.
I've read a lot of books. I can't actually quote for you what specifically they say about certain things.
I'm not asking for a specific quote. I'm just saying which father does he quote to support his view? Because when I read a book, they quote
a specific quote.
No, it's not. It's okay. Let me clarify. I'm not asking you to quote verbatim or specific quote. I'm just saying if you're going to look at a modern scholar and he's trying to state the view.
I'm saying that it is a real distinction. Is there any issue or anything on the contrary saying that it's a conceptual distinction?
No, but here's what I'm saying. My criticism is, I know what you're saying, but is this what your creed says? Is this the actual belief of the fathers? You've not given any evidence that it is the creed of the fathers, though.
The creed of the fathers. This term would have came after the fathers.
Okay, beautiful. This specific term, real distinction, came after them, but the meaning of it, which means to be distinct in reality, that doesn't come later. That literally is something which is independent of a terminology. So where do they talk about a distinction in reality between the persons and the essence then?
Right, they never talked about whether or not it was a distinction in reality or conceptual. They just said whether they were not or distinct. That's what I'm saying. The terms don't come till later.
So but a distinction can be separated into multiple types of distinction. So how do you know they was referring to a real distinction then?
Right, because if there wasn't a real distinction, then there would actually be no difference between the persons and the essence. There would no point for them to even say there were three persons.
That may be true, but how do you know that's what they...
because he's the one that brought up the book too, so maybe he has the quote. So just so you know, that's why I'm bringing him up, because maybe he has the quote in the book.
As long as it doesn't become like too... I don't know who you're going to bring.
I told you, I went one-on-one with you the whole conceptual time. You know I don't go two-on-one.
I appreciate that.
Okay, so yeah, I know he's probably gonna bring up the quote.
I was just gonna show that conceptual could still be in reality. That was the only point.
Fine. You can discuss
just
that
as
with
Basil.
Nick disagrees.
You said what?
I said Nick disagrees with that. So if you want, Nick disagrees with that, so you can speak to him about that if you'd like.
No, but you said he was right. That's why it came up. Conceptual does not deny that it exists within the natural order. On the contrary, distinction is precisely that between the cause and the effect that comes forth from its partless and individual perception. That could be one of them, which Saint Cyril says. Now, what you're talking about, I'm not gonna lie to you. If you're talking about like scholastic terms, they didn't use that. They used a term called katapanoion, which has like, yeah. So Basil and Gregory of Nazianzen says that the distinction between the persons of the Trinity is recognized through reasoning to affirm explicitly. That is katapanoion, which is a conceptual distinction that maps on the reality.
So it is a conceptual distinction or a real distinction? Because he said it's a real one. It seems like you're saying it's conceptual.
I'm saying they didn't use those terms like that.
So, yeah, but they would have, okay, they may not have used the term real distinction, but they would have spoken about the meaning, which is distinct in reality, right? Surely.
Yeah, it's just, so that's why I'm saying that even though it's a conceptual one, meaning that it's made within the mind, doesn't mean that it doesn't map onto reality.
So just to clarify, the distinction between the persons and the essence is in the mind, correct? It's conceptual?
It can map onto reality, though. It could be a real distinction as well. I'm saying, like, I don't...
No, Jordan, I get that you're saying it maps onto reality, but I'm asking you directly. Is it a conceptual distinction, yes or no?
What, I would say?
Yes.
Yeah, I would probably say
why
it's a
would you
conceptual distinction.
Why would you disagree with Nick when he says it's a real distinction? What's your
I wouldn't necessarily disagree. I'm just using the terms that they use. They use katapanoion.
Okay, so
Nick just saying they use different terms.
No, because like I'm telling you, if you look into this distinction stuff, you could use like 3 different ways and argue for all 3 of them.
Okay,
good. Like there's so many different distinctions.
Okay, so Nick, do you agree when he says it's a conceptual distinction between the persons and the essence?
And he's not saying conceptual like we mean today. He's saying they don't use those terms back then.
Okay, but it literally says right there, what is it? A distinction conceptual does not deny that, whatever the rest is.
I don't know.
Yeah, that look distinction conceptual. So it uses the terminology conceptual, and it uses distinction. So it pertains the distinction being conceptual, right? And that's why Jordan says that he believes it's a conceptual distinction which latches onto reality, right? So would you agree with that notion that it's in the mind, the distinction, like he said?
I think it's both. I think it's in reality too. It's a real distinction too.
So it's
not all. That's what I'm saying. It's not only conceptual distinction. Like when you think conceptual distinction, you think, oh, it's only in the mind. No.
Western side and the eastern side.
Yeah.
So I'm saying you could use both depending.
No, but yeah,
because
I have
people
a problem.
don't use those scholastic terms like that.
No, but I have a problem with the position specific because I've been asking questions so far. My whole point has been asking Nick about this reference, right? But I think I'll move on because you just said now that this is conceptual. So I'm asking you, that's a problem though. If you're gonna say that there's real distinctions between the persons, but then the conceptual distinction between the persons and the essence, I think that
I'm saying this is between the persons.
Yeah.
Between
no.
the persons of the Trinity.
We haven't been talking about just the person. We've been talking about the essence.
I know, but if you listened when I first came up, the reason I came up is because you said that you agreed with Nick that conceptual does not map onto reality.
No, that is
I said
true.
Conceptual can.
No, but
okay,
again,
that's all I came up for.
No, but so you haven't. Okay, let me just clarify. When I said those terms again, I'm using this modern scholastic definitions, right? I literally said. So when you come up, just to clarify, have you got any sources that I asked for regarding like this sort of terminology being utilized?
Okay, if you tell me specifically what you're looking for, if you're looking for the scholastic term, you're gonna have to look in the scholastic book.
I'm talking about real distinctions, like within the early, to support your creed, right? That's what I'm asking.
By real distinction, what do you mean?
Yeah, so a distinction in reality, right? The distinction which is occurring between two things is in reality, right? One lacks any reality.
That could be, okay, even on the scholastic side, that could be a conceptual distinction as well.
Okay, okay, give me one scholastics that says the conceptual distinction and then defines it that way in which there's a lacking in reality between two things. One thing lacks reality from another. Which metaphysics says that?
You said lacks reality?
That way, a real distinction, and another way to say lacking, different in reality is one thing lacks a reality from another. That's what it means to be really distinct. Like what?
So if you look at, let me pull up. Do you have Ed Feser's book?
Scholastic Metaphysics. I had it, but I don't know if I still have it. But I can pull it up though if you can give me.
I got it.
I think I can pull it up. So.
Yeah, I actually like it, but I've got his definition actually. Subhanallah, he defines real distinction as something which reflects the difference of things within reality, and then he defines a conceptual. He calls it a mere verbal distinction, right? In his scholastic book, he defines it as, let's see, mere verbal distinction. Oh yeah, he calls it a purely logical distinction, which occurs when something is merely verbal without any foundation in reality. So no, he makes a very clear distinction between.
If you read right after that, he'll tell you that it can map onto reality.
Here's what you're referring to. No, I think there's confusion. What you're referring to is a virtual distinction, which is something which has. A virtual distinction, according to Ed Feser, is a distinction when it's virtual, when it has some foundation in reality. But that is not categorized as a conceptual or real distinction, right? He makes a distinction between those three distinctions.
Virtual is a type of conceptual distinction.
He also says, but it has some grounding in reality.
Yeah, but a virtual is a type of conceptual. That's what I'm telling you.
Great. That's fine, but it's not what I'm saying.
You just said it wasn't. Okay, this is the whole point I came up for.
That's not true at all. Let me finish, right? You actually let me finish.
Oh my goodness. Bro, do you not listen to what you say?
You've read his books, you understand what he does, right? He splits it up into a multiplicity of distinctions.
Yes, he has like 4 different ones within those two, real and conceptual.
Yeah. No, he has minor and major real distinction, and then in virtual distinction, he has major or perfect or minor or imperfect distinction. We get that. But what I'm saying is, when we're talking about conceptual, we're referring to, or at least I'm referring to, what? A purely logical distinction, which he himself makes very clear when he says a purely logical distinction occurs when it is merely verbal, without any foundation in reality. So I don't know what the sort of thing is, but anyhow, it puts me back to my initial question, which was, have you got any support within the fathers or any authority of your creed that supports the notion that the persons are really distinct from the essence?
Oh shoot, I thought I was muted, huh?
Yeah, my answer still holds the same, that they don't use those terms of real distinction.
No, but have you got? I get that that's your belief. No, guys, I get that's your belief. I'm not saying that you're lying to me and you're trying to trick me. No, I'm saying to you this, okay? That, yeah, I don't know why people message like to go to Jay Dyer's live. Like, bro, literally blocked me. And it was like a month ago. Anyways, listen, this is the thing, right? I'm asking you. I know that's your position, but I'm saying, is this position stated within your creed? Is it backed up by your creed? Because before I could take your position,
backed up in our creed if they don't ever talk about that.
Okay, so so what did they say which leads you to conclude that the persons and the essence are really distinct? Let's go through their quotes. Which quote?
I mean, we can go to quotes about their different, what their distinctions are.
Yeah, that's good. Just because I'm just like, all I'm doing is like, because this is fair. You did the same to me, right, about Ibn Taymiyyah like a month ago. I'm doing the same thing, honestly. I just want to verify so I can actually understand your position. Because before we debate on Tawheed versus the Trinity, it's only fair that I actually like critique you, right? And likewise, you can do the same thing to me. Like you did in the past.
Exact quotes.
I want a quote from one of your authoritative fathers or saints, and then from there I'm going to ask you what from this leads you to conclude that there's a real distinction between the Father and the Essence, or the Son and the Essence, Holy Spirit and the Essence.
Yeah, whatever. I think logically it has to be like a real distinction.
That's a good point. You could say.
So if you're speaking of like conceptual as, again, only in the mind, then I don't think it can possibly be that kind of distinction. So therefore, when they say really distinct, we can use logic to determine that.
Omar, hold on, Omar, real quick.
One second, let me respond to him, please. I'm going to be respectful. Just let me finish. Nick, I would agree with you that if it's the case they say it's conceptual between the essence and the persons, this violates logic, right? If they're going to say there's a real distinction between the Father and the Son, but only a conceptual one between the Son and the essence, or Father and the essence, this violates logic. I agree. However, that doesn't answer their interpretation. How do you know that they agreed with that interpretation? I get, well, from our perspective, it's illogical to say the otherwise, but how do you know that's their interpretation is what I'm saying? Like from their works, we have to see.
I think it's kind of like an exact word fallacy. Or he didn't say this exact. That's like saying, like where in your creed does it say God can't specifically both exist and not exist at the same time? And if it didn't say that, then
here's the problem, though.
We can use the logic to know God can't exist and not exist at the same time. You can talk about it.
Philosophers within our tradition. But here's my point, though. I'm not asking. Like,
no, I know what Omar's asking, but that's not my point. So, Omar, you saying would you agree that logical distinction is a conceptual one?
You said what? Sorry.
That a logical distinction is a conceptual one.
Yeah, so that's a good question. So a purely logical distinction as defined by travese.
No, not purely logical.
Yeah.
A logical distinction.
Well, how would you define logical distinction?
Okay, that's my point. It's one that's you said that one is an extramental reality. Hold on, I'll pull it up.
I never said that. I didn't say anything about extramental. Extramental is something which exists in reality. That's not what I said.
Okay, I'll just pull up what Phaser said since I have it, because this was what I was talking about. Okay.
Good. No problem.
Scholastics define real distinction as one that reflects a difference in an extramental reality, and a logical distinction, or distinction of reason, meaning conceptual in the mind, as one that reflects only a difference in the ways of thinking about the extramental reality. Okay, yeah. So a logical distinction, hold on, this is my point. A logical distinction can be either purely logical or virtual.
Beautiful.
Okay.
And a virtual distinction.
A virtual when it has a foundation in reality. So if a virtual, hold on, let me finish, Omar.
Okay.
Because this is all I came up here for. You could have just agreed with me and I wouldn't be saying this stuff anymore. No, a virtual is a type of a logical distinction, which is a conceptual distinction. So yes, a conceptual distinction can have a mapping onto reality. That's what I've been saying.
You're saying can. You're saying it can in a case, but then it also cannot if you're referring to a merely verbal or purely logical. That's fine. I don't care about that. Me and Nick already made it clear. When we said, let me finish, please.
That's all I was saying.
Me and Nick was speaking, and when we was utilizing it, we was referring to only exists in the mind. Nick himself literally just said 5 minutes ago, when he's using it, he means only exists in the mind. So you coming up and trying to critique our use, when me and him already went ahead utilizing the meaning of a word, is just frivolous. But Jordan, if you can answer my...
That would be y'all making up definitions, though. I'm trying to help both of y'all out.
I'm going ahead with the definition Nick agrees with. If me and him agree with the definition, there's no problem with that, because me and him are speaking, not you. So there's no problem with this.
Bro, if you guys are just gonna make up categories, I don't even know what I came up here for.
Not, but I'm saying if you want to correct him in private, you can message him. But I have a question for you, Jordan, before you go. Do you believe personally that the laws of logic are created?
Yeah.
We went over this last night. I agree with him.
But this is hilarious. Okay, do you believe it's created, correct?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So by
Wait,
creation,
it depends on which logic. Are you talking about the logic we use, Omar?
I'm talking about the laws of logic, the universal.
Yeah, like the logic that we use. Okay, yeah, I
Like
agree.
the three laws of logic, correct?
Yeah. Of the law.
I agree
yeah.
with them. That is created.
Okay, great. So the law of non-contradiction, the law of identity, and the law of excluding meal, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Based off of the uncreated mind of God.
Good. That's fine. So yeah, it's based on the yes, we're all created based on the uncreated mind of God. Does that not mean we're all created? No, that's ridiculous. Here's the thing.
Okay.
I'm asking you this, right? Yeah, that's just a bizarre point with all due respect. So here's my problem. So when you say it's created, when was it created?
What do you mean? When was it created?
You said the law of logic was created. So I'm asking you, when was the law of logic created? By the way, Nick.
When was time created?
Yeah, Nick, keep it between you. Because I'm gonna press.
Hold on. When was time created?
So you answer him with a question. I'm asking you a question. When was logic created?
I'm saying the same moment that time was created.
Okay, so was there a point before God created time?
Was there what?
A point prior to the case that God created time.
A point prior? You ain't
Yes.
call it prior.
Well, what do you understand by prior?
If you're talking about temporally, how in the world are you gonna say there was something temporally before time?
No, but I'm asking you. How do you understand the term prior? I
don't understand something as temporally before time.
Means. No, I'm asking not temporally. I'm asking you. What do you mean by prior? Define the term prior.
I'm saying temporally. Isn't that what you're saying?
Oh, okay. Okay, great. No, I'm asking you. Great. So temporally. So would you say that everything? Okay, creation is eternal. Is that what you say?
No.
But you just said there was not a point. Okay, eternal okay. Okay, so time is. Okay, there was not a point before time, right? And time is a creation. That means that time is eternal. What do you mean? Literally.
Okay, what do you mean by eternal?
Yeah, that's great. So the case that it goes.
No, what do you mean by eternal?
The case that it goes all the way back. It had no. Yani, what's the word? Let me think. You could say beginning. Let me get a good dictionary definition, actually, so we can agree on one throughout the discussion.
No beginning.
Let me see. Because you guys don't make a distinction between pre and post eternal, correct?
I don't even know what that means, bro.
You don't know what pre or post eternal means?
No.
Okay, I'll just explain it to you. So,
how could something be pre-eternal?
Pre-eternal, right, means, let me think, for example, the beginning, it has like no beginning, basically.
How could something be eternal with a beginning?
Yeah, that's beautiful. For example, heaven and hell are eternal, but it was created, so they're post-eternal. They have no end, but they have a beginning. That's an example.
Yeah, we got what? Ooh.
Do you not understand?
Yeah, we just got different definitions. We got way different definitions.
Yeah. Post-eternal, hell and heaven is a perfect example, right? So.
Well, we don't believe hell is eternal.
Oh, okay. But you believe heaven's eternal?
And by your definition, yeah.
Oh, okay. So do you believe?
I don't even know what that's a different definition, bro. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Hell is not eternal, and heaven is eternal. Then would everyone eventually go to heaven according to you?
No. So
what?
Okay, hell gets thrown into the lake of fire. So.
Okay, but that doesn't answer my question. If you're going to say that heaven is eternal, but hell is not eternal, then how would you say that people would eventually not go to heaven?
Hell, the lake of fire is not the same thing as hell.
No, that's fine, but I'm asking, okay, that's fine. Hell and the lake of fire then, right? If this is the case, would you say that this is eternal?
We believe hell eternally goes on. Like it's everlasting.
So it's eternal, right? It's everlasting, because he just said no.
Eternal isn't the same thing as everlasting.
No, okay, everlasting, what do you mean by everlasting? It doesn't end?
Yeah, never ending.
Yeah, well, what is eternal? How do you define eternal?
No beginning and no end.
No beginning.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so eternal would be an example of that which is everlasting, correct? Which has no end.
Not necessarily.
You give me an example of which something has no beginning and end, but at the same time it has an end. I don't see how that follows. That makes no sense.
Everlasting is something that has a beginning that doesn't have an end.
Yeah, I was about to say that first bit was important to mention. Like, yeah, definitely, that's an important clarification. Okay, great. So I'd put it then back this, right? Alhamdulillah. So Jordan, you say that logic was created at the beginning, right? With time?
Yeah, the one that we use.
Okay, right. So how would you not say that it's eternal then? Because there was not a point before that in which it was the case.
Because we don't use that as a definition.
As what is a definition?
As eternal. Creation has a beginning to us.
Okay, but was there a point before creation?
What do you mean a point?
Was there a time in which creation didn't exist?
A time? No. Like I don't know what you mean by that. Like time is a creation.
Like God exists before creation, but it's not like a time.
No, I agree with you. Yeah, well, well, that's most likely because you say God is out of time, I presume, correct? The essence is out of time? Or would you say it's temporal? Yeah, exactly. Well, that answers your question, and that's why you'd say that, right? So, okay.
We just have different definitions. But if we use your definition of eternal, then you could say eternal, but I don't even think that's a definition of eternal.
I told you I just make a distinction between pre and post, but okay, that's beautiful. So if laws of logic are created, then let me think. Okay, yeah, that's beautiful. So did the laws of logic always exist?
Not ours.
Depends what you mean.
What do you mean it depends what I mean?
You mean like the first okay. So you talking about like the 3 laws of logic that we normally talking about?
Yes, it's the laws of logic.
No, I think they came into existence at a point.
They came into existence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, beautiful. So did they? Okay, beautiful. Before they came into existence, right? Or before they existed, did they apply to God?
What do you mean apply to God? It's a reflection of His mind.
So logic applied to God right now, right?
It's okay. So do you know about the divine logoi?
No, the divine what? The word or whatever.
Divine logoi.
No.
Okay, this is why I didn't want to kind of get into this, but
we can get into it. I don't mind. It's like I'm critiquing it from a logic. I'm not doing an internal critique, so it's fine.
So the things of creation are basically things that are based on the divine logoi of God, which are like the
what's
thought
the
wills of God. You said what?
You said what does logoi mean?
Logoi? Well, it's kind of like a derivative form of like logos, which would be like reason or logic for a rough translation of the word.
Okay, beautiful. So logoi is what? One last time, let's get it clear for everyone.
Logoi is like multiple of these like thought wills of God.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, beautiful. So let's see. So how does that answer the objection? Sorry, I don't get how that answers it. Like you would agree that laws of logic apply to God, correct? God cannot exist and not exist at the same time, correct?
Yeah, I think it's a reflection of how he is though. Like I think that the actual thing that we use, those 3 laws of logic, God actually transcends that. But it's a reflection of how he is.
So he transcends the laws of logic. Would you say they apply to him?
What do you mean apply to him?
Okay, can God exist and not exist at the same time? Simple. No, so therefore he doesn't transcend them because he literally is subject to the law of non-contradiction. Then how does he transcend them if they apply to him?
So for instance, it's kind of like the same thing as like saying like, oh, you're not an airline pilot, so you're not a real pilot, but you're actually talking to somebody who like pilots a space shuttle, like what? He operates on a higher level.
What sort of analogy is that? What?
Because if you're talking about, if you're talking about the being that provides being to all beings.
Something, please, because that's example.
How much? Hold on, I'm trying to explain. If you're trying to explain the being that gives essence to like all beings, you're gonna run into some issues trying to explain how he operates. It's just a fact of the matter.
We may not know the howness of his operations, but that doesn't negate the fact or support the fact that he transcends logic now, yet is somehow still applicable or subject to logic. That just seems like a contradiction.
How is that a contradiction?
Because you're saying God transcends the laws of logic, but at the same time they apply to him. He's subject to them. How can you transcend something yet still be subject to it at the same time? One negates the other. It's a contradiction.
Yeah, I think he created the ones that we use.
That's fine, but it doesn't address my problem that it's a contradiction. Can you please?
I don't see how if somebody transcends it, then all of a sudden these laws can't like apply in a certain way.
Because what it means to transcend it is mean that you're no longer subject to it. For example, God transcends our subjectivity, right? He's not subject to our subjectivity. He transcends it. Likewise, if you're going to say that God transcends,
what does that mean that he's not subject to our subjectivity?
Yeah, so when I say it means that he's independent of us, right? He's independent of our mind. He exists extramentally, right? So, for example, let me put it in a better example. So you would say as a Christian, and I would say as a Muslim, God's our objective moral source, right? We would say why? Well, the reason for that is because he transcends our opinions, our subjectivity. Whether we think God says something is wrong, it's irrelevant. What God says is right is right. You would agree with me, right?
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that he's all of a sudden subject to our moral categories, is it?
No, I'm saying, no, that means that he's not subject. That's my point, because he transcends our subjectivity. Therefore, he's not subject to it, right? That's what I'm saying.
No, I'm talking about, okay, so, for instance, God has morals, right?
What do you mean God has morals? Do you mean he submits to a certain moral standard, or do you mean that he tells us what is right or wrong? What do you mean by that?
No, what do you view that statement as?
No, you asked, so I don't know what it means. You're gonna have to define it.
Okay, so does God submit to like some level of goodness that he has to follow?
No. Is this like some sort of like reformulation of like the youth right throw, whatever the hell that?
No, I'm just asking. The
answer's no. The answer's no. Alhamdulillah. The Quran, what his commands are in line with his nature, right? The Quran makes it very clear in chapter 7, verse 28. I believe it says, Inna Allah la ya'muru bil fahsha'i. So Allah does say, indeed, Allah does not order immorality, right? So his commands are in line with his nature, and his nature is good, therefore his commands are good, right? Well, that's how we would answer that. So yeah.
So you would say that he's in line with that nature of goodness, correct?
Well, yeah, it's his nature. He is that, like, his nature. Like, what? Yeah, so it puts it back to my question anyways, which is, if we say that God transcends our subjectivity, that means he's not subject to it, right? He's not subject to our mind. He transcends it. Likewise, if it's the case, you're going to say God transcends the laws of logic, he cannot transcend them, yet at the same time be subject to them, right? That doesn't make sense. One negates the other. Because if you transcend something, it's no longer subject to you, right? And if you're subject to something, you cannot transcend it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand?
He transcends the created one. That's a simple answer, right?
Yeah, Nick.
No, because
to answer it right now, it's like a confusing thing. I'll give you time. It's fine. I'm not gonna like press you on something.
No, because if I'm wrong about something, I want to see where the issue lies. I'm trying to figure out why. No, because I'm trying to figure out where the issue in that would be. Because some people would say that it's not created. I'm just saying that I think it's based off of the uncreated.
Yeah, personally, me on
no,
this.
I think it's based off of. So my thing is, I think it's based off of the uncreated logic of God. Yeah, so I think that the logic that we use is based off of something that God created, based off of His uncreated logic that's always existed.
No, I agree. I mean, I don't mind you saying that. Like, that's fine. But I don't see how that addresses my problem. But here's the thing with me personally, because it is a difficult thing, right? Don't get me wrong. Like, guys, no one mock Jordan, right? This is a very difficult thing. I wouldn't go into it. I would simply stay, like, out of it. I would stay completely agnostic of the issue because it's such a confusing thing which philosophers have debated for so long. It's not something which I expect you to answer something straight away. But when I saw you say that, like, it is created, I thought, wow, this is the problem, and that's my only point. I think
the reason I said it was created, because I'm not sure like what he means by that. Because when he asked the question, it was kind of like a generic question. So when I say it, I say what we use would be something that's based off of the reflection of God's mind and how He operates.
Yeah, this is
to me the divine.
Yeah, this is a good point, actually. I think this will be beneficial for you. So this is one view regarding this situation, right? Is the laws of logic created or uncreated? Some people, you can say this, right? This would help you. This would be a good position for you to hold. So you can say that it comes forth from God, but you don't have to say it's created. You understand that, right? You can say it's uncreated, rather it comes forth from God or it omits from His essence or something like this. But you don't have to say, like you're saying, it seems like you're saying it's created because you're trying to justify the fact that it comes forth from God. But you can have both ways. You can say it comes forth from God, yet still be uncreated, right? You're not forced into saying it's created.
So the issue is, like, I agree that there's a logic that's not created, right? Because we literally call Jesus the divine reason, the divine logos. But it has to do because He's the ultimate, like, source behind all things and all creation, and that He's the unity of that stuff. Mm-hmm. So when I say the logic that we're using, the only reason I say it's different is because that's not the divine word. So when I say that logic is created, I'm talking about in the realm of what we're using, not necessarily like in general, like when you use a general term of logic or something being logical.
Okay, so I got a message from my father. Give me 1 second, inshallah. Yeah, sorry, where was we again? Sorry, I got a message about something. Can you give me 1 minute? My father just messaged me about something. I think needs me to check something. Give me like 1 second, okay? And then we'll continue our discussion if possible. Give me like 20 to 30 seconds, okay?
So,
yeah, so Jordan, do you understand like the thing that I said? Because you can say it's uncreated, right? But also that it omits from God or it's from God. This is like a position that I find convincing, but obviously I stay out of this matter because it's like a risky position.
That would be that would be more along the lines of like of it being a divine energy would be. So basically, when we say that something's like created, right? There's like I don't know if you want to say like the prototype or the principle, the overarching principle that is what we're actually designed after. So when we have logic in this world, I would say that it's based off of that eternal principle of logic that's uncreated.
Yeah.
That comes forth from God, which would be like an energy of God. So that's all I'm saying.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I don't mind that. Yeah, good. So I'm glad we like went over that point because it was something I wanted to raise to you. Like, also here's another point as well. So I'm no problem. You can like get back to.
And you know, and different Christians will probably have different views on it. I don't know what the view of the church is.
I don't want to like.
That would be like the Eastern. What I've seen the Eastern Orthodox position is.
Yeah, because I don't.
I would have to see a church father saying that, but I haven't found any church father saying that about logic specifically.
Yeah, I think maybe perhaps if someone does, maybe Thomas Aquinas may talk about it. I don't know, to be honest, but I know he gets like pretty philosophical. So
he probably does. I mean, I might read his. If anybody knows his response, I might look at that as well. But that's also a different metaphysic. But I'd be cool with submitting it either way. It doesn't really matter to me.
So I'm glad we went through that. That was an important thing. I'm happy I had that like thing to be. I can send like or whatever we can discuss it. You can message me, hit me up or whatever when you want to. But I got another thing, inshallah. So when you say that the distinction between the Father and the essence or the persons and the essence is conceptual, what exactly do you mean by that? You're not, just to be clear, you're rejecting a complete, like only in the mind, correct? Oh, look at Nick getting ready.
Nah, I was just in my car. I just got back home. So.
Oh damn! What the hell? I thought you was.
That's why I was muted the whole time.
Oh, okay. I didn't even notice, but yeah, Jordan. So what would you say to that?
Yeah, I'd say that it's different. It maps onto something that's actual.
It's more of like a video. Alhamdulillah. So you'd say it's like a virtual distinction. You say like it's a virtual. Okay. So it maps on something into reality, but the actual distinction itself is conceptual. That sounds like a virtual distinction, correct? If I recall correctly.
Yeah, I mean, if you're using that, probably. I don't know what Phaser calls it.
Yeah, he categorizes it as you like on the picture you showed. He says, I believe there's two. A conceptual can be one of two things. It can be a mere verbal or a purely logical. He uses them synonymous, which means that it only is.
Do you know what he says for the Trinity, though?
For the Trinity, no. I know he gave the critique of those Christians or like the Trinitarians who say that distinction until separation. He gives like a good example in his book. He talks about a circle. And the circumference and radius, and then he also gives an example of like Scotists who hold this view and why not Christians shouldn't hold this view, right? Because if a Christian holds this view, then it's problematic, because if they're going to say that distinction until separation, then that means that God, the Trinity, would be separate, right? Because they're distinct. So he critiques this view. I know he does do that, which I like it for him. I actually respect that here a lot.
I don't think I would have an issue between either one of them, honestly.
No,
whether it's real or virtual, with the distinction between persons.
As long as you acknowledge it's in reality, like.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, but here's what I'm saying, Nick. That's a good point. That's why I think he has a problem, because he's saying the distinction is conceptual, but it latches onto something in reality. So basically a virtual distinction. But is that distinction itself, Jordan, conceptual? Would you say the actual distinction, like itself, not what it latches onto, but like the distinction itself, right? What would you say about that? Would you say that's conceptual? Because if so, I think that's a problem.
The distinction itself?
Yeah. So the distinction itself, I get you saying that it latches onto something in reality, right? A virtual distinction, but like the actual distinction, the thing which differentiates the two things, right? The persons and the essence, is this in the mind or is it in reality? Like the distinction itself.
It has to be reality. Obviously.
So I think if I remember correctly, the basic like thing that makes something conceptual distinction is that it takes place like in the mind, and it's not something that's just like out right in front of you. Like if you do any sort of like mental processing of it, then you would say that's a conceptual distinction.
Exactly.
Which is kind of weird, but Yeah, so I wouldn't. I don't see a problem either way with it being a real or a conceptual one.
Oh, I'll tell you why it's a problem, because I think Nick is right on this specific point. Like, for his position to say that it's a real distinction, I think it makes more sense, because, and I think he has an argument for this as well. I think he can definitely make an argument against your position for this, right? I'll tell you why. So I would ask you, for example, is the persons really distinct from each other?
In what way?
They're not really distinct, sorry. Is the three persons really distinct from each other?
They're not the same person. Like, it's just, yeah, they're just not the same person.
They're not the same person. Are they really distinct? Is there a distinction between the three persons?
Is it
a real distinction between the three persons? Like, are they different in reality? Is there a real distinction?
I'd have to see what like the church fathers say on it. I think they say it's a conceptual one though.
A conceptual distinction between the three persons? Which father says that?
I think that's what they say. If I'm not mistaken.
I think Nick can agree with me on that. One thing they all agree on, as far as I recall, is, what would you think, Nick? Because as far as I'm aware, they all say that between the persons, they emphasize that there's a real distinction. So I'm not sure really. Can you give me like a father who says that? Because I've never heard of that actually. Like where he says it's a conceptual between the three persons. I'm not sure where you said that. I'm not sure where you get that from, with all due respect. I think Abby in the comments and Nick, I think they agree that it's a real distinction. I think that's like something emphasized actually. I can try and get a quote just to help you if you cannot give one.
I mean, okay, my question is, because like we know that a conceptual distinction can be real, right?
No, but I'm saying like real.
And that a real distinction can be real.
But I'm saying real in the sense that it's in reality. It's entirely in reality. The distinction itself is not in the mind. Like a virtual, for example, you'd say that it's in the mind, but it latches onto something in reality. I'm asking you purely in reality, a real distinction, right? Because a virtual is a conceptual, as you said, a type, right? But what about a purely like a real distinction?
From what the quotes that I saw, I think that they said it was a conceptual one.
Which
actually?
Yeah. Have you got any references?
It was.
I really don't think so.
Yeah, it was the one that okay, it was the one that we read in the Bradshaw paper.
Okay, no, I mean like is there any sort of like authorities? Like I get someone in the 21st century.
Yeah. I think he was quoting Basil when they said it, because they didn't.
You show me that?
Use it like this. Yeah, I just had it up. I might have. Hold on.
And in the meantime, while you're doing that, Nick, do you agree with that, or would you say it's real? Because as far as I'm aware, I've never heard someone say it's conceptual. So what's your opinion on that?
Depends how you're defining conceptual. If you're defining conceptual as something that's within reality, I don't have an issue. But I mean, it has to be in reality. So. But
would you say it's real though? Because real excludes any sort of conceptualization. It says purely in reality, right? So would you agree that it's a real distinction or conceptual?
If you're saying real would have to exclude any sort of thing in the mind, I don't think it would exclude any sort of thing in the mind.
No, I'm saying in the sense that, for example, a real distinction and an example of a conceptual one, like a virtual, they're not the same thing. A virtual distinction is conceptual. The actual distinction between two things is in the mind, but that which you're distinguishing is in reality. So it has some latching onto reality, as Jordan said, right? But a real distinction is purely
describing something in reality.
Exactly, I'll tell you why. So it's describing something in reality. So you have one thing in reality, you have a bottle of water, right? Now, the distinction being drawn about this is in the mind only. So it would be a virtual distinction because it relates to something in reality, but the distinction itself is only conceptual.
The distinction between what you said?
So a bottle of water, right? Now the distinction, if I make a distinction in the mind, right, but it refers to this bottle. This bottle is in reality, so I can have a distinction in my mind, conceptual, but it would still relate to something in reality. So this is an example of a virtual, but by real distinction, I'm saying this. So everything is in reality. So the bottle is in reality, and the distinction is also in reality. The distinction part is not just in my mind. He's saying
both reality and in mind.
Okay, I can see what you're saying, but I don't think that's not what they say though, because they make a distinction between like virtual and because the virtual.
No, bro, because I'm telling you, I'm pretty sure. Hold on, let me see if I can find this thing first before I say it. But I'm pretty sure they also say.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they also say that the two natures of Christ are also a conceptual distinction that map onto reality.
Well, I wanted to get into that with you actually after, but I wanted to go through this because that seems like a problem. I'm not sure when your creed that it would state that it's conceptual, that it's not entirely.
None of this stuff is gonna be in the creed.
So none of this stuff that we're talking about is in your creed that you're saying?
Definitely
none of this is going to be in any creed. No type of distinctions are going to be in the creed.
Okay.
You have to go based off of what the church fathers are explaining, because they'll use the issue is they'll use things like catapanoian or like conceptual type of distinctions, but they'll be explaining something that we clearly know are two different things, right? And have actual distinctions in them. So you have to actually look at the context of this stuff, which is like a mess.
No, I know it's a pain, because obviously these things you can only like conclude based off of interpretation of the fathers. That's fine. That's not a problem personally. I don't think that in of itself is a problem. I just think it makes it very difficult to try and justify beliefs. Obviously, as we see it, right, it's like a bit of a pain it can be, right? Because you're gonna have to like get the reference and that, which I respect. That's why I'm not like pressing you on whatever. You can take your time. That's reasonable. That's fine. I'm just saying I don't think that they would allude to it, right? Obviously, they don't mention this, as you said. This stuff is not found in your creed, but surely they hint to it, right? That's something I'm interested, because I don't think they say conceptual. As far as I'm aware, and I'm gonna try and get the reference, even though it's irrelevant what I'm about to say now, but I'll try and get the reference. As far as I'm aware, Thomas Aquinas emphasizes the realness of this distinction between the persons, right? So I mean that's one person, but I'll try and pull the reference, even though it's not really relevant.
What did he specifically say?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. I think the wording is very important. So I want to quickly, alhamdulillah, I'll try and get the reference while you're doing that. Let's see. The divine persons. Okay, let's see. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Okay. Alhamdulillah. Yeah, so as I was saying, I think that is like an interest. I don't think I've ever had anyone allude to that, to be honest, like a conceptual, especially between the persons, maybe between the persons and the essence. I know they hold to a virtual distinction like the Thomists, right? But I've never heard that. But there is a Catholic Rumi. I don't know. Maybe he knows Thomas Aquinas better than I do.
We not letting Rumi's an odd, bro. We not letting that man up. That man be siding with Muslims, bro. He's weird.
Wallah. But yeah, I mean, just to help you, like for your reference for Thomas Aquinas, because obviously I think he's read. So I mean, if someone knows the quote, it's gonna be him. But that's fine. We don't. Yeah, he doesn't have to
not have the quote.
Okay, I understand. That's fine. No, I understand that. But yeah, absolutely. I think that's just Jordan, have you had any luck with it? Because personally, I don't think there is the quotes. I don't think, and I think Nick might agree with me.
I found. I'm trying to see what they're talking about to make sure I'm saying it in context.
No problem.
But, if you go to that article that I was telling you about, he gives all of these quotes. He talks about where they mention these specific, how they kind of mention these distinctions. So Saint Cyril of Alexandria talks about it in his commentary on John 1:3. I don't have Saint Cyril of Alexandria.
Okay, what's the reference for that?
His commentary on John 1:3.
On John 1.
I have the book, but I'm not at home.
It's fine. I'll get it now. I'll pull it up, inshallah. And John 1:3, you said, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. John 1:3. What is verse 3? Is that the one where he talked about beginning or something? And the beginning was the one. That's the one. I think it should be in chapter 1. Do you know the quote, or can you pull it up on camera or anything? Because I'm looking like just skimming and scamming, but I cannot find anything like about that in the chapter. In the beginning was the word. Let me type this. Okay, conception. Wait, let's see. If the difference of the names is one to contribute nothing to honest. No, that doesn't answer. That's just a different one. Okay.
I think he was talking about the difference.
Yeah, I'm looking now, and I like the word conception. It's critiquing people who have a misunderstood conception, right?
No. I don't think it's gonna say. It might not say conception. It might just say.
That's fine. We can like, yeah. So what would it say roughly? Or because Saint Cyril of some interest. I've never heard that before. So I'm just like, if you can get the reference, I'd appreciate it. If not, I'm not gonna like press you on it. Obviously, I know you're not like. I don't want to.
He says it's divisible, and he might say it's divisible in conception. Though I think.
Oh, divisible in conception, fine, but that wouldn't. Like, I don't think that would lead to them being conceptually distinct, right? As a negation of a real distinction or something.
No, that's what apparently David Bradshaw is saying that means.
Wow, that sounds like a little bit of a stretch, to be honest. If they're divisible,
I'm telling you, they don't use like the terms like this.
No, I know, but still, I get they don't use that. We have to interpret it, which is fine. Interpreting a text is not a problem, but I think like that's like I want to see his justification for that interpretation. I don't think it's like I think it's very like it's like leaping, not even leaping. It's like mountain like hopping, bro. What the hell? SubhanAllah. But do you think you'll be able to get the reference or probably not? If not, it's fine. It's fine. Just so I know to move on because I have so much.
If you get the actual like the article, did you look up the article?
I think earlier on I did. Yeah, I don't think I have it pulled up anymore though.
If you look at the footnotes, he has all the sources for those, and he talks about the distinction specifically and what it meant in the early church fathers. That's why I brought it up.
Is there any? Yeah.
You said what?
I was just looking at my TikTok thing.
So what would be the issue with saying it's virtual, both in the mind and in reality?
Oh yeah, but a virtual is not saying the distinction itself is in reality. It's saying that the distinction is in the mind, but it relates to something in reality, right? But the actual distinction between that thing and reality is only in the mind. As opposed to a real distinction, which is saying that the distinction itself is actually in the mind and the things that exist are in the mind.
Yeah, I think, but if you use the definition, then in the mind and in reality.
Wait, so you're... Oh.
Yeah, so a real distinction is... No, here's the problem. So a real distinction, you're saying that the distinction itself is in reality. A virtual is just saying that the distinction is in the mind, but it relates to something in reality. For example, a bottle of water. This is an object in reality, but you can make a conceptual distinction about it, but that distinction only exists in the mind. But it's about something in reality.
What would the distinction be using a bottle of water?
Yeah, like... some sort of like name. Okay, yeah, beautiful. So conceptual distinction, something nominal, like a nominal distinction. So a bottle of water or a bottle of some alternate word you think of for water, right? This is only, it refers to the same thing in reality, but it's just a conceptual distinction between water and like, okay, water and water. There's literally the concept.
I think you just changed it to changed it to a purely logical one.
No, I gave an example of a logical one, but it pertains to something in reality.
No.
Right?
You need like but you need a virtual one has to do with something that actually maps on. Let me just use it. Hold on. Let me just pull up the example Phaser says. But
I'll just tell you animality.
Too much.
Yeah, I'll tell you his example: animality and rationality. But I didn't want to use those because it seems like it doesn't really help. Animality and rationality sounds like.
Well, it does because animality is not the same as rationality.
Of course not. Yeah. But I'm saying like
nobody in any world would say that that's the same thing.
No, I know they're not the same, but the reason I didn't use that I already knew the example, dude. But the reason I didn't mention it is because the word animality and rationality it can confuse people, right? What is the meant? What is meant?
No, it's just like the difference between being an animal and being rational. Those are two completely different things.
Fine. The example he gives, I'll just read.
And that would be determined in nature, but that's true in reality. So it's actually it's real in reality.
I can see if Dr. Mullins wants to come up too.
Doctor who? Mullins?
Ryan Mullins.
Oh, perfect, yeah. I'm curious what he says about this, actually, if it is the person I'm thinking of.